Yeah, hello everyone. We're back again, and you're welcome to the Africa Enlightenment Center, to our debate and discussion session. And today we have another wonderful guest with us, the person of UDEH PRAISE Obioma. He's a young African who is blazing new trails in what is the revolution that is taking place in Africa right now. And permit me to bring to you Uday Praise Obioma. Can you say hi to our viewers?
Hi everyone. Thank you, Apostle Genesis, for this opportunity. I've always wanted opportunities like this. I've always envisioned things like this, but I never knew that platforms like this existed until recently. And I must confess, I love what you're doing. Thank you, sir.
All right, you're welcome. So quickly, we're going to go to your introduction, and we'd like you to introduce yourself and tell those who are watching who are you per se.
Okay. My name is Uday Praise Obioma. I am from Abia State, Isukwato local government, precisely in Uturu. And I was born in 1999 into a Christian home. I was fully dedicated. I grew up in that background. That was in Port Harcourt until I was 6 years old when we relocated to Imo State. We still continued in the Christian background, and I grew up in that manner until will I say 2019, 2020, when the pressure was much on me from internal, not peer pressure. The pressure was much on me to question the things I was doing. My mom will always say, whenever you have issues, she will say it in Igbo, "Bo wegi meeting," which means call yourself to order. So it's got to a point in my life where I felt like this is not working.
It's like we're having a slight network glitch. Let's wait to have our guest back. All right, we're having some slight network problem. Let's see what happens. Sorry about that, guys. Trying to fix it up. Okay. All right. I think he's connecting back right now. Okay.
Sorry for the
Can you still
glitch.
hear me?
Um, so yes, I can.
You can hear me?
So it's got to a point in my life where
Let me see.
I I was in between. Yes, I can hear
Mhm.
you. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Can you hear me?
Yes, of course. I can hear you now. Yes,
All right.
I can.
All right. Should I proceed?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So it got to a point in my Christian life where I was in between two options: the option of faith and the option of reality. Or will I say the option of belief and the option of reality? And of course, we know reality will always win. Nature will always win. Nature seems to be brutal in its quest and it doesn't care about sentiment. So I began to realize that most of the things we were taught while we were growing up in church were actually fairy tales that didn't really have much impact on life. In fact, some of those things we are even deviating our attention from reality to something else that is imaginary. So that's a bit of my story. I left religion eventually in 2020 December, and since then I have been irreligious. Least I forget, before I left religion, I attempted other religions. Before I left Christianity and religion entirely, I attempted other religions because I believe in a courtroom. It is not ideal to present one-sided story. I told myself I am going to check out other versions of the story too. Let me check out other religions to know the one that actually has the truth, because all of them are claiming that we own the monopoly of truth. We own the monopoly of knowledge. Come to us, we are the authentic one. Disregard every other one. So I told myself it's only ideal to check out other religions too. And um, in summary, I would say I got to realize that all of them are the same content served in different bottles. So eventually, December 2020, 2021, I left. Thank you.
All right. That's interesting to hear.
All
So,
right.
the question I'm going to ask next
So,
is
the
that
question
what was the
is
tipping
that
point? As
what
in,
was
what was
the
it that
point?
actually
What was the
made you so
actually
curious?
made
You
you
know,
so
to
curious,
question the things that you
to
have
question
believed.
the things that you have believed? I can't hold on to one thing to say that this was the exact reason I left religion or I started questioning religion. But then, if you ask me to mention that one thing that triggered my inquisitiveness, I would say it is reality. I would say it is reality. Reality made me question the things we were taught in church back then. For instance, I'll share a personal experience. When I left religion, um, I love wearing corporates a lot. So back then, when I was a student in Abia State University, I would always wear corporate to school when I was religious. And when I stopped being religious, I continued wearing corporate to school. So it's either corporate or I put on native to school. So one day I walked into a lecturer's office and he saw the way I was dressed. He asked me, "Mr. Man, are you a pastor?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Do you belong to anything in ministry?" I said, "No, sir. Actually, I used to, but I no longer fall into that ideology." So he was like, "So you're trying to say you are an atheist?" As of then, I was an agnostic. So I told him, "Sir, I am an agnostic, and I won't say for sure that God does exist and this whole religious thing is ideal for us." And the first question he threw at me was, "How did you come into existence?" I told him, "Sir, my father and my mother, they had sex, and 9 months later, my mom went to the labor room to give birth to me. It's a biological process. That explains it." Now, as against what we are being taught in church, that all which means that child comes from God. You don't stay there as a woman and expect what happened to the fictional Mary in the Bible, where a Holy Spirit came to impregnate her, to impregnate you. No, you've got to do something about it. So reality actually made me question religion, because religion seems to be saying the opposite of reality. Thank you.
All right. So
All
we're
right.
talking about
So what about
um, the
you know
transcending,
the
boundaries,
boundaries
boundaries that have been
that are
set, in our
set,
society.
in
We
society,
came to
we
meet these
came to meet
boundaries.
these values,
They've been there,
be
over
there
the years.
over the years.
So, looking
So
at it critically, what are those
what are
boundaries
those
that you
values
can actually
that can
identify
actually identify
that you
that
believe that
you believe
can
that
actually be
can
broken
actually
by
broken
people who are still
by people
bound
who are
by
still
these
bound by these
boundaries?
boundaries? Okay, if you ask me, I will say it's not really boundaries, but a boundary. It's just one thing, and it is the mental boundary. So everything, the whole enslavement, the whole cage is more mental than physical. Permit me to say that. We are too scared to question the system, because the Bible tells us that people who ask questions a lot, they are blasphemers. We should refrain from blasphemy. But what we actually call blasphemy is what we call criticism. You're actually asking questions to find answers. And the Bible tells you this is a sin. Don't go there. So stuffs like this are things we need to, the boundary that we need to break is just a mental boundary. This is us telling ourselves that we cannot exceed this limit. We have given ourselves a benchmark, whereas in the real sense there is no benchmark for humanity. um there's this popular Christian saying that what God cannot do does not exist. And me, I have always been of the opinion that what man cannot do does not exist. Because to the best of my knowledge, if you look down history line and even what is happening today, we've seen human beings go to extents that we couldn't believe. Last 2 years I was discussing with my immediate older brother. I told him that I think that there should be a time when, if you want to go to America from Nigeria, you are sure that you will be in America in the next 15 minutes. 15 minutes is even too big based on what I am thinking. It is too big. I think we can achieve that. And I was also telling him that I think also that we can have internet connection in aeroplanes, where if you're traveling, for instance, as we are having this discussion, I can have it on board. That's if let's say it's not a commercial plane where I'll be disturbing other passengers. If it's
The
in a
passengers, yeah.
convenient environment, we can, yes. So now, just last month, they invented an aeroplane that has internet connection, and they test ran it towards the end of last month, which means that this thing I was thinking of 2 years ago, someone else somewhere was actually thinking of the same thing. So I don't believe that we should give ourselves this benchmark. We should always strive to exceed those limits, those places that they are telling us do not go. We need to go there. We need to shine the light on that place. Let us know why they said we should not go there. I want to chip this thing in also. I had an argument, let me call it an argument, with a pastor on one of my Facebook posts some time ago. And he challenged me to tell me that human beings are limited when it comes to cure of certain diseases. I told him, sir, I think you're mistaken, because to the best of my knowledge, the cures of certain diseases that we think are not in existence, they are actually in existence. Just that some persons who have revealed these cures in time past were killed mysteriously. And of course, the persons who are promoting it now, the system will not permit them to promote it well. A system that tells you that herbal medication or traditional medication, for instance, is bad. But now, if you go back to memory lane, you realize that our forefathers who made use of this traditional medical system, they lived longer than this our generation. In recent times, someone will die at age 70, and you're seeing them writing stuff like celebration of life on the burial poster. But back then, 60, 70, there should be questioning, why did this person die early? Stuff like that. At 70, someone should not be thinking of death and all of that. The medical system we had back then tend to be better. Now, I was telling this pastor that don't limit human beings. After that discussion with that guy, I learned about someone who uses herbal medication to cure cancer. And it's even something that is in our environment, something that we can find in almost every street in Nigeria, which is shower shop. And I also
Mm.
learned about someone else who, I won't say he cures HIV/AIDS, but he treats it that the chances of you experiencing most of the symptoms, the chances of you living a normal life as every other human being, they are there as long as you respond to his medication and all of that. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is it is just one boundary, and that boundary is the boundary of the mind. It is not boundaries. If we can conquer that boundary of the mind and we dare ourselves to do those things that are still on our mind, if we dare ourselves to bring them into reality, we can achieve those things. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
You talked about
yeah,
some
you
cures that
talk
are
about some things
like that are people invented,
like that are people
hundreds
invented
or thousands of years
hundreds of
ago.
thousands of
I
years
think I've
ago.
also read
I
about
think I've also
one
read
Dr.
about
Sebi
one Sebi
who was able to cure,
who was able to
HIV
cure
using
HIV
and
using
natural herbs and all that.
natural
But the man
but
was,
that was
technically exterminated,
technically
and
contaminated, and
most of those cures
most of
invented
those
seem to be lost and
invented
all
seem to
that.
be lost and all that.
So most of our people,
But
like
most
you
of our
said,
people, like you
they've
said,
not
they were
actually
not
been able to
actually
come
been
out of
able
that,
to come out of
shell,
that
that
shell, that
boundary,
boundary,
that you spoke
that
about.
you spoke
Now,
about.
looking
Now,
at,
looking at
this
you
issue
know
right now,
this
the
issue right
boundary,
now,
it's
the
just
boundary,
only a few people
it's
that have
just
been able to
only
wake up in
a
Africa
few that
and come out of
to
that
wake up
boundary.
in
So what
Africa
can be
boundary.
done,
So what
because
can
that
be
is the main
done,
issue
you
right
know,
now.
because
What
that
can
is
be
the
done to
right.
push these, especially
What
these
can be
young
done
people,
to push
out
these
of this
young
place, to
people
cross this boundary so
out
that
of
they
this
can
place,
begin
across this
to make
boundary, so
use
that
of
they
their
begin
mental,
to make use of their
capabilities.
mental capability. Okay. I actually had this same question thrown at me in the podcast yesterday evening, and
All
I'll
right.
give you the same response I gave to them. So, the thing is, they said that you can only force a horse to the stream, but you cannot force the horse to drink the water. Someone was asking me some time ago, what is your problem? What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to pull people out of religion? I said it is not my responsibility to pull people out of religion. My own responsibility. Hello, sir, are you there?
Yes, go ahead. I can hear
Yes,
you.
go ahead. All right. So my own responsibility here is just to do the publicity. There is freedom of speech, as long as you don't go slandering someone, you don't go blackmailing and all of that. As long as you stick to the rules of the game, there is freedom. Some persons come to attack me when I publicize my stuff on Facebook, and I think I need to chip this in. Personally, I don't subscribe to one-on-one um, discussion on religion with people I know, in fact, with anybody. I stick to what I do on my social media timeline because it is public, anybody can see it. But when it comes to one on one, I see it as no, this is your idea, live by it, let me live by my own. I should not disturb you with it. But then, if you happen to come across my social media timeline, you'll get to see those discussions there. So, the only thing I think we should do is to up our game in publicity. Because to the best of my knowledge, that Christian who is telling you stop talking against religion, keep your belief to yourself, that same Christian has the banner of one crusade as his profile picture or DP. That same Christian will publicize it every day. In fact, before the crusade, they will go out for rally and disturb people on the streets. They will share tracts. They will give it to you in your hand. If you fail to collect it, they will start giving you this kind of emotional blackmail and the rest of them. So if they should do their publicity, we should do our own publicity. Nobody has the monopoly of publicity here. So the only thing I would say we should do is the publicity. For forcing people to abide by the truth, our experiences might differ. Judging from my personal experience, when I left religion, it was very brutal. And because of that, I cannot just see anybody and start telling the person, come out. Because if the person comes out and face the same brutality, the same rejection, and all of those vices, the person might not be emotionally strong to handle those things. So I think our job should just be on the publicity, and we should leave the acceptability to the people. Let them do it themselves if they want to. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Talking about
All
the
right.
things
So
that you
talking
went
about
through, because
things that you went through,
it's expected that
because
you go through, a lot in the hands
that
of,
you go
people
through
that care
a
about you,
lot.
that you
The
care
answer to
about,
the people that
and
help you
before
that you care
talking about the
about,
general
and
society.
before talking
Talking
about
about
the
that, can you
society,
highlight some of
talking
the
about
things that
the
you
highlights
faced
of things
in
that
your
faced
deconstruction journey and, coming
construction
out?
journey
What are some of
coming
the
out.
things that you
What are,
faced
what are some of the things
actually
that you
that
faced
you can
actually
actually
that
highlight?
can actually highlight? All right. Okay, basically about my friendship. Before I left, I told myself that, hey, bro, now put yourself in the shoe of a Christian and try to imagine that brother that used to be a Jim brother in church, because that was who I was. I at age 17, I was a national exco in my church back then. I was the logistics leader of the National Youth Choir at age 17. I was one time field youth choir coordinator and also the coordinator in my local branch. And I've been featured by other churches. I've attended churches to do preaching, to sing, and all of that. I've been invited in talk shows like this to spread the gospel. So I was telling myself, look at that unbeliever, that brother now that used to be like this who left. Shebi, you will not want to relate with that person. Basically, because the Bible says that don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers, for evil communication corrupts good manners. You won't want to relate yourself with that person so that the person will not pull you out from religion. So you see that attack is now inevitable from those Christians. And I told myself, bro, you will lose friends, so it will not be an easy journey. Most of the people you think that are on your side, they will not be on your side henceforth. And it happened just as I predicted. Although the little stuff there was that it now exceeded my expectation. Yes,
Yeah.
because I was thinking that, okay, let's say for instance, if I have 10 friends, out of the 10 friends, maybe four will leave me. I'll hang around with the remaining six. But nine and a half and quarter left. I was left with quarter. So that was how bad it was. In fact, I had someone who I can't count two of my closest friends back then without counting him. He told me to my face, bro, I told somebody that if the person will continue in this lifestyle, the person should tell me so that I should end the friendship. Immediately he told me, as an Igbo man, they said, Werire goeze gono, use your tongue to count your teeth. So I stood up, I shook hands with him. I was like, okay, bro, you don't be now. As I was leaving the compound, I was actually deleting his phone number and all of that. I told myself, yeah, this is it. I cannot force the relationship. I left. Eventually, the guy later came back and we are good now. So stuff like that. I can recall one day I was walking on the street and one woman was shouting. She was shouting from like 3 poles away. Oh, ye foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? She was shouting it and she was coming closer. She was referring to me. So to her, I am being bewitched. So we've encountered issues like this. That's for relationship. On the side of business, which of course should be getting money for man, there are some persons who, when you encounter them and they get to realize that you don't stand on the same belief, automatically they don't want to do business with you. So generally, it was kind of a brutal experience, but then I was prepared for it. And personally, I don't even like keeping crowds. I don't like keeping crowds, even when I was religious. Yeah, I don't really like attending functions unless they are official functions. Official functions. If it is something that you're inviting me on personal basis, sometimes I tend to decline. So I think I love the lone life. I love the lone life. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
All
I
right.
think judging by
Judging by
what is happening in
what is
Africa,
happening
like
outside,
somebody said
like somebody
recently
said
that
that
religion,
religion,
left
left
Europe, left
Rome,
everywhere, and came
yeah,
to
to
domiciled in
domicile
Africa.
Africa.
And they think
And
that,
they think that
especially in Africa, they
Africa
think that
that
Christianity is
great
growing, that
growing,
religion is growing,
religion is growing,
judging
and
by
judging
the
by
number of
the number
churches
of
that are
churches that are
opening,
in,
every
you know,
day and all that.
in it.
What do you think is
What do you think
responsible
is
for,
responsible for,
this,
you know,
growth in the number of
the number of
churches and all that
churches
in,
and all
Africa, especially in
Africa,
Nigeria?
especially in um, what I think is responsible for the growth of religion in Nigeria, let me use Nigeria for instance, because I've always been a Nigerian and I've always lived here. I can't really tell of other countries. It is what the church and what religion sells to its audience, which is belief, faith, and hope. Belief, faith, and hope. These are the things that they sell to the people. But in the real sense, the people should not be banking on these three things because these three things do not have anything that they are holding on to substantially. They don't have any backup, any substantial backup. If I tell you, Mr. Apostle Genesis, please give me 10 billion naira, I will give you tomorrow. Believe me, I will give it to you. This is me giving you a metaphysical hope. I am not giving you a collateral. So it's a different ball game if I am giving you a collateral, something you can hold on to. Yes. Now, I shared an article by Karl Marx on my Facebook timeline sometime. And that article was the one he captioned, Religion is an opium of the masses. And in that text, somewhere along the line, he mentioned that religion is a metaphysical balm for a physical wound. Now, let's say, for instance, I don't like fighting, But let's say, for instance, both of us, we are fighting and I tend to cut you and you are bleeding. At that point, sorry should not be the question. The question should be, how should we get first aid treatment? How should we heal the wound? How should we patch it? How should we stop the bleeding? How should we check out for your own health if maybe you've lost so much blood and all of that, your overall body system? That should be the case. Now, metaphysics, this metaphysical BAM, it works in a place where the people, they have this misplaced priority. They have this misplaced priority. In now, let me put Nigeria and a country like China side by side. In China, majority of the citizens, to the best of my knowledge, are irreligious. They don't believe in religion. They don't hope on an imaginary God up there for anything they need. Whatever they need, they work it out. They set a goal and they work it out. Another country I'll use, for instance, was Dubai. An architect who is now in US was showing me the documentary of the world tallest hotel as of then, which was Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which they built on a sand-filled part of the ocean. Now, when I was watching this thing, it triggered me to research about Dubai itself. And I got to realize that it got to a point where the king of Dubai invited surveyors to come and check the crude oil in Dubai, which was their major asset back then, to come and check the quantity, let them know how long this thing will last, how sustainable it is. Let us know what we are banking on. And these surveyors told them that this crude oil will not last up to 2019. I think so, if I'm not mistaken. I've forgotten the actual year. Now, he decided to deviate the country's main assets from crude oil to tourism. And it was an intentional movement which he embarked on. Dubai didn't have much land space. So what did they now do? They started doing dredging. They started doing sand filling on the ocean to start building things on the ocean. And they even went ahead to build aquariums. They have hotels that are submerged in the sea. They have residential buildings that are submerged, and all of those things. They make use of what they have. But here in Nigeria, I was telling my neighbor yesterday, we were having a similar discussion, and I told him, to the best of my knowledge, every street in Nigeria has mineral resource on it. That you don't know is that a geologist have not been there yet. You might be thinking, okay, maybe it's gold, it's diamond. I will give you an instance. The place where I was living before in Imo State, anytime it rains and you come out with your shovel and your headpan to pack sand, you pack a good quantity of sharp sand. So if you're building something at that point when it's raining, and let's say what you're building is not too much, you can bank on the sharp sand gotten from gutter after it rains. So all of those things, they are mineral resources that we can harness for our own good. But now, religion doesn't point you to those resources, including human capital resources. Yes, I'll have to add that, because the mineral resources, to an extent, they are useless without human capital resources. Now, religion doesn't point you to those things. They are pointing you to bank on an imaginary God in heaven, whereas the cure we need is here on earth. The people who will facilitate the cure we need is us, human beings. So, this is the society we live in. Unfortunately, so many people are caught up in the matrix, and that is the reason for the too much population of religious people in Nigeria. And I think if we can bring people out from that belief system to a conscious system, religion will die a natural death, and in extension, politics will die a natural death. Thank you.
All right. I think there's
All right.
an issue
There's
with
an issue
our
with
people coming out of
people
religion
coming out of
because people have been used to the
people are
routine
used to the
that
routine
religion offers.
that
You know, in the morning you have
you
to pray
have
to
pray
to a
to
God, and then
God,
dedicate
and then
everything you're going to do to that God.
that
You go
God,
to church.
you put the
You
church,
believe that things
you
are going to
believe
be
that
well,
are
even
going to be
though you're
well,
not doing
even
the
though
right
not
thing. You
doing
just
the
believe
right
that
thing,
somehow that
or
God is going to
somehow
help you,
it helps
and
you.
then
And then
you go
you
through a lot of
go through a lot of
rituals,
rituals,
depending on
depending on
the
the
the faction, or should I use
faction
the word
or should I
faction
use
that
the
you
word
belong
faction
to,
that belong to,
because all of the
because all
different
of the
factions, they
different
have different
they have
rituals that they
different
perform,
rituals that
all different
come
ways
out,
they pray
different
to
ways
that
to pray
God.
that
Some
God,
believe they speak with
believe
tongues, some
don't
don't believe in
don't
speaking
believe
in tongues, you
speaking in
know,
tongues,
depending on the faction
depending on
you're
the
in.
faction you're in.
And so they
And
have
so
a daily
they have
routine,
a
weekly
routine
routine, and all that,
and all that,
giving to
giving
receive,
to receive,
so many of these
so
things.
many of these
So
things.
now
So
coming
now
out of
coming
that,
out of that,
routine,
routine,
I believe it will be
if
difficult, to
thought
adapt,
to adapt
to
to
new way of
new
living.
way of living.
So, what are the
So
things
what are
that
the
for
things that
you
for
as a
you as
person?
a
What are the
person,
things that
what are
you
the
do?
things
How
that
do you
you do?
start
How
your
do you
day? How
start
do
your
you live
day?
your
How do
life?
you
How
live
do
your
you,
life? How do you,
coordinate yourself
coordinate
now that
yourself
you are no
now that
longer
you no
part of
longer
that,
part of that
religious routine that
religious
you were
routine that you were
part of before?
part of? Okay. Thank you. That's a good question. Like I mentioned in my last comment, the essence of bringing people out from religion is to pull them out from that belief system to a conscious system, a system where if I am sick, for instance, I know that I should go for checkup and I know that I should go and treat myself, not a system whereby if I am sick, I start calling my pastor on phone. Hello, daddy, I am sick. Oh, kindly pray for me. Or I want to come to the church so that you lay hands on me and pray for me. That is not treatment. If those things are actually working, so many people have been saying it. Ambulances should be headed towards churches and religious gatherings rather than heading towards hospitals. So, if I have my plan for the day, I draw it out and I work towards achieving it. I take conscious steps towards achieving it. If I am to wash my clothes this morning, I wake up, I pack those clothes, I go and fetch water, and I come and wash the clothes. I don't keep that clothes there and start kabashing. Oh, rabababa. Father, come and send your angels. What God cannot do does not exist. You said we should ask for anything in your name and you shall give it to us. Come and wash these clothes for me. No. I understand two keywords. These are the two keywords that guide me in life since I left religion. And those two keywords are responsibility and intentionality. I'll take it again: responsibility and intentionality. So I understand that I am responsible for my actions and my inactions. I understand that anything I do today, it is me that committed the sin or whatever action that I committed. And if there are consequences to that action, it should also be on me because na me do am. So that is how I take myself and I coordinate my life since I left religion. Thank you.
All right, you
All right.
mentioned two
Two
keywords:
keywords,
responsibility, and intentionality.
intentionality. Yes,
So,
sir.
looking at our
So looking at our
society right now,
society right now,
we have
we have
more than
I think more than
90% of
90%
uh, the
of
African
the African
society are
society
either
are either
Christians
Christian
or
or
they are
they
Muslims,
are Muslim,
and
and
that is they have
that is
faith
they
in
have
one
faith in
God or
one
the
God
other,
or the other,
and these
and
beliefs
these
have a
beliefs
way of
have a way of
influencing,
influencing,
our
our
society and
society,
people, even people
and even
around us,
people around
because
us.
which is to say almost everybody around us, they are either Christians or, they're Muslims. And being able to cope with, this kind of in this kind of environment is really, really very difficult. So I would like to ask, what else, as in, can you do to be able to survive in the midst of people like this that are all around us?
Um, there is nothing else you can do if not for ignoring the excesses and sticking by what you came to do. You avoid distractions around and stick to what you are doing. Let's say, for instance, you are outside in an open park and you went there to read, and you find playing football. You went there to read. You need to stick to what you went there to do. And at the point where you leave them and you leave the reading and you now go to join the people who are playing football, at the end of the day, you spent your time at that place. That is fact. But what was the essence of the time you spent there? What was your original intention for going to that place? And what did you achieve after going to that place? So at the end of the day, you will definitely find people whose ideas do not align with your ideas. We will get to see them in the society everywhere. But then, and permit me to say this, I will borrow the motto of Kegite Club. Although I'm not a Kegite, I'm not a member, but their motto says unity in diversity. This was how we were relating with ourselves during the pre-colonial era. We understood that this person is my fellow human being, although what they do might not align with what I do. I will use, for instance, our marriage system. In my community, the way we marry in my community might not be the same way they marry in the neighbor community or the sister community. In my community, for instance, they might be requesting for, let's say, 100 tubers of yam. And in another community, they are requesting for 2 tubers of yam. Now, I won't say, okay, our own is bad, their own is good. I should learn to blend with them. If I want to marry from them, I can marry from them. If they want to marry from us, they can marry from us. At the end of the day, the goal is the marriage and not how the marriage was conducted. So we should learn to live in peace with everybody, irrespective of their ideology, irrespective of what they believe. We should learn to live in peace with everybody, because at the end of the day, we are all humans, and all of us will undergo human experiences. If sickness is coming, sickness is not asking you, are you a Christian? Are you a Muslim? If sickness is coming, it is coming to you because you're a human being. And of course, you cannot face a sickness that is peculiar to rats as a human being, unless maybe at some point you had interaction with a rat. Maybe you're a scientist, you are handling a rat in the lab and got infected, something of that nature. But all things being equal, we all undergo that human experience. So the issue of segregation should not be seen here. What we should fight for rather is unity in our diversity. Now, the Bible said something about the Tower of Babel. Let us recall that the Bible did not mention that they sinned. The Bible did not mention that. What the Bible said was that these people came together to build a tower to go and meet God. To meet God in Christian vocabulary, it means fellowship. They were building a tower to go and fellowship with God. And God said that there is nothing that can stop these people apart from changing their language. Now, what God did was that he changed their language. I was discussing this with someone yesterday, my neighbor, and we came to the conclusion that to change the language in that text doesn't mean that I am speaking Igbo and you are speaking Spanish or you are speaking Hausa. That's not what it means. It means misunderstanding. To change language, what I am saying is not what you are saying. You don't agree with what I am saying. I don't agree with what you are saying. God was able to achieve this. And this is why religion is bad, because religion fights against the unity of human beings. That is why the Bible clearly tells you don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. But at the end of the day, you forget that we need each other to survive. That Hausa man that you are fighting, you are calling your enemy. At the end of the day, you realize that some of the food we eat comes from the north. They themselves, they call us infidels, permit me to say. They forget that the oil they use, the palm oil they use, it comes from the south. Even the crude oil and some other resources comes from the south. So at the end of the day, all of us, we need each other to survive, because despite our religious background, despite our ethnic background, despite our tribal background, we are all human beings. When we were born under the classification of human beings. And when we will die, we will still die under the same classification. So that's just it, basically. Thank you.
All right. One
All
thing
right.
I can see is
One
the
thing
fact
I
that
see is the fact that
the hope
the
of an
hope
afterlife,
of
the
life,
hope of an
the
afterlife
hope of an
is a
afterlife
huge,
is a huge
problem
problem
that
that
is that is
is
used to
that is
control,
used to
religious
control,
people, especially those of the two major
especially the
religions,
two major
in the
religions
world. I think
in the
that is
world.
one major thing
That
that
is one
drives
thing
them,
that drives them,
to commit some of the
to commit
atrocities they
some of the
commit
activities they
and
commit
do some of the
and
things they
do some of
do,
the
and
things
that
they
fear,
do, and
of
fear,
when they die, what
when they
happens
die,
next,
what happens next,
is used to,
and,
control them. What do you
control them.
say
What do
about
you
that?
say about that? Okay, I think there are two sides to this your question. The first side is where you asked about the hope of the afterlife.
Yeah.
And the second side was where you tried to pick on morality, fear being used as a bait to achieve morality. I'll talk about the morality part first, then I'll go to the other side. Um,
Yeah.
no religion has the monopoly of morality, because, like I mentioned, we live in diverse ideas as human beings. What you think is right in your place is wrong somewhere else. I'll give instance. I don't know if it is really true. I've not met with Buddhists, but I am yet to know. When I was leaving Christianity religion and I was checking out other religions, Buddhism was one of the religions I wanted to try out, because I think, permit me to say that among all religions, it seems to be the most humane of all of them, to the best of my knowledge. So I learned in one of their commandments that they said, do not sleep on raised surfaces, which means that you are not permitted to sleep on a bed. I don't know if that is what it means. Like I said, I didn't really get to find out from Buddhists, but they said do not sleep on raised surfaces. I cannot sleep on a mat because um, cold disturbs me. If I sleep on a mat, I might not wake up the next morning. It might be my burial from there. So to me, a Buddhist is actually a sinner in that aspect. And to a Buddhist, I am a sinner in that aspect. Because imagine that, let's say a Buddhist comes to my house, okay, let me say an electrician, and he's to fix the bulb or the fan in my room, and the person enters my bedroom and sees bed stand with bed on it that is about 2 feet above the floor level. The person automatically sees me as a sinner. Now, morality should be based on communal agreements. On communal agreements, yes, that should be the basis of morality and not religion, because we have realized that the morality that religion is preaching is actually a faulty kind of morality. Permit me to say that. Now, going to the other side of your question, where you asked about the hope of an afterlife, this is what I'll have to say. Personally, I've not met with anybody who have died before that came back to life to tell me that this is what life looks like after death. And of course, judging by the whole afterlife story, everybody has their own version of the afterlife. Christians have theirs, Muslims have theirs, other religions too. Some time ago, I was asking someone, does it mean that as a Christian, if I go to heaven in my own religion, I am going to hell in other people's religion? I think that question should be looked into. If I am going to heaven in my own religion, of course, my heaven does not align with that of other people's heaven. My heaven signifies their own hellfire. So does it mean that I am going to hellfire in their own religion? Now, basically, I think that there is no afterlife. When we die, we die. Although evolution happens, but it is not the kind of evolution where, let's say you die today and 2 years, 2 generations coming, you enter the womb again. Like one of the poems I handled in school back then, Abiku. Abiku was a fetish child who they will give birth to the child will die, go back to the womb again. So no, that's not the kind of evolution I'm talking about. Or we call it reincarnation. If you ask me about reincarnation, I'll simply give you a biological definition of reincarnation, which they call someone having dominant gene. Yes. For instance, as you are, in my place, they say, Agwo anaha amu ihe dị mkpụmkpụ. A snake cannot give birth to something that is short. A snake will only give birth to something that looks like it. So that is my own concept of the whole reincarnation stuff and evolution stuff. But for us dying and going to one imaginary heaven where you will be singing every day of your life till eternity. I did music. I did music partially back then in church. I used to head the choir, and I know that even to sing in one night vigil, like all through the night, in the next morning, my voice is already strained. Sometimes if I talk, you won't be able to hear me clearly. Now, how come you're singing for thousands of years? Shey, your voice na JBS speaker. I mean, even JBS speaker, it has battery, and the battery will get to die. So it's all imaginary, and it doesn't have anything to do with reality. Now, here is the bad side of that imaginary heaven. It takes away our consciousness from the life we are living to that place. We are so much concerned about our mansion in heaven that an average person who is thinking of a mansion in heaven doesn't own a piece of land in his or her name. Excuse me. The person doesn't own a piece of land in his or her name. The person have not molded block before, but the person is claiming to have a mansion in heaven. Life is not Nollywood. Life is not where they won't get building materials, where they won't use build mansion for you for heaven. Building materials don't cost. So all of those things, they are fictional. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
All right.
All
Before
right.
we,
Before
round
we
up,
go,
let's look at
let's look
our
at
educational
our
system, because
educational system. Because
this whole thing,
this
this
thing,
boundary that we're talking
this
about,
boundary that we're talking
it,
about,
it, it's you know it's
it, it's
inside our educational
inside
system.
our educational system.
Because that is
Because
where our
that is
children
where
are raised.
our children are raised.
Basically, our children are raised
Like
either in the church, the
either in
mosque,
the
and
church
then in
or
the
in,
school.
in the
And I
school.
think the most
And I think
important
the most
one is,
important
happens in
is
the school.
happens in the
So,
school.
what do you
So
think,
what do you
can be
think
done about
can be
this?
done
Because
about it?
there's a
Because
whole lot
there's
of
a whole
things
lot
that,
of things
need to
that
be done. But
need to be done, but
concerning education,
concerning
because
education,
if we cannot get
because
it
if we
right
cannot get it right
educationally, I think
educationally,
we won't be able to get
we
it
won't be
right.
able to get it right.
Yes, thank you for that question. What I think of, although I don't really like talking about what's it called, religious, the current educational system we practice in Nigeria, but then I'll have to say this, that the current educational system we practice in Nigeria is one that is very, very warped. Permit me to put it that way. Someone in a seminar was saying that Nigeria, which has big deposits of so many mineral resources, has majority of its citizens that do not know at least how to mine those mineral resources. Let's not even talk about refining. We have a vast majority of the citizens of a country that has major deposits of mineral resources that do not know how to mine it at the first place, much to talk of refining it. But the people who brought religion to you, they teach their children mining and refining in their schools. They don't teach you that. They'll start teaching you 36 states and capital. They'll start teaching you the whole countries in Africa as if that was what you came to do, cramming work. It has little or no, will I say, contribution to technicality, to practicals. It's more of theory, and the theory are even theories that are not helping life. They are not things that will I say, that are relatable to reality. So the educational system is warped. It is something that we should also continue. We should also consider while trying to eradicate religion and the politics it came with. I don't really like discussing religion without mentioning politics, because I believe that both of them are the same thing. They are not different things, they are the same thing. So this politics also brought about the educational system. This educational system prepares an average graduate to be dependent on the system and not to be dependent on his or her ideas. That is why you see an average graduate looking for a job, instead of going about to, trying to achieve that thing that you think you are good at. I don't want to use the word destiny, because that word destiny, it has been abused. Doing that thing you think you are good at. An average graduate is graduating. Funny enough, they are even graduating to go to look for jobs that pay 30,000, 10,000. My first job when I left school was 15,000 a month. You divide it, that's 500 naira per day. So the system is not good. Most of the things we teach in that system in school are things that do not relate with reality. And I think while we are kicking against religion and politics, we should also kick against the curriculum we are using. I will give you an example. In the Igbo pre-colonial educational curriculum, we had things like Igba boy, we had things like Ịmụ ọrụ aka. These are, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear
Yeah,
me, sir? Okay.
Yeah, go
We had
ahead.
things like Igba boy, we had
yeah,
things
go
like
ahead.
ịmụ ọrụ aka. These things were practical things that people could lay hands on. You know that this thing is substantial. You know that as you are leaving the village to go to Nkpo to learn how to sell tire with your uncle that is at Nkpo in Onitsha, after 7 years, you might have learned how to sell tire, how to bargain, how to buy, how to sell, how to write invoice, how to do your yearly account, your daily account, weekly account, all of those things. Now, under Iba Boy, you've learned bargaining, you've learned sales, you've learned purchasing, you've learned accounting and invoicing. You've also learned management. You've learned so many things. And at the end of the day, you're being settled with something that is substantial. If you're going to learn Oroaka, for instance, you're going to learn welding and they write an agreement for 2 years, 3 years. At the end of the day, you know that when I come out from this place, I should be able to construct an iron gate. I should be able to construct an iron door. I should be able to do things that other welders are doing. Personally, I have an experience in motor alignment and wheel balancing, which my father taught me for, I think, about 4 or 5 years of my life. Yeah, he taught me alignment and wheel balancing to the point that I can use rope and a piece of block to gauge your alignment, and I will do the alignment without an alignment gauge and still get what we call panel line. The vehicle, the tire will be in alignment. So all of those things, you know that at the end of the day, you are coming out with a substantial knowledge that will guide you to get what you want. So that's the thing about the Western educational system as against the traditional one which we used to have. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So the
All right.
going back
So
to
going back
that traditional system, I think it will be
that
very
traditional
difficult.
system,
But
I think
do you think it is
very
possible that
difficult,
we
but
can
it
revive,
is possible
some
that
of
we can
these
revive, some
systems
of
that our
the
forefathers used to
systems that
operate
our
before
forefathers
now?
used to operate for now.
Reviving it is not far-fetched. In fact, we are doing it currently. Yes, we are doing it currently. Um, for instance, 2 years ago, or was it last year rather, from January till March, I did a course in digital journalism. And like I said, these are practical things. You know that if you align with this by so time, these are things that is expected of me to learn, and
Yeah.
you work with it. So reviving that kind of educational system is not far-fetched. All it means is just bringing back technicality and practicality into the educational system, and that is not far-fetched. In fact, people are doing it. On Twitter, I know most people who are sponsoring things like this, and they are doing well. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So in a nutshell,
All right. So in a
what
nutshell,
are your final
what
words
are
to
your
those
final
who are
words
watching?
to
What can you say
those
to
who are
them?
watching? What can you say to
Um, Being irreligious in a religious society, or a society where majority of the citizens are religious, can be very, very challenging. Yes. A situation whereby you step out there and you face segregation, you face series of attacks by people who are religious, who claim to be peaceful just because you are irreligious. It will never be an easy thing to do in a climb like this. It will never be an easy thing. That was why earlier I mentioned that you don't force a horse to drink the water. You only force the horse to the sea or to the stream. And I also mentioned that why I said it is because I understand that our personal experiences differ, our emotional balance they differ. The way I might handle a situation emotionally might not be the way someone else will handle the same situation emotionally. But whichever way, they say slow and steady wins the race. So whatever you're doing, just keep on going. As long as you are going ahead, you are going forward. Thank you.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much
joining us
for joining
today.
us today.
And we hope
And
that
we hope
next
that
time
next
we
time
call on you,
call
you
on you to
also show up
also
as we
show up,
continue to,
continue to
enlighten our
enlighten
people
our
and
people
help them
and help them
understand
understand
that life
that
is
life
beyond,
is beyond
religion. That there's so
more,
much more to
so much
life
more to life
than
than
living
living
under
under
the the
the
bondage of
bondage
religion.
of
So thank you
religion.
so much
Thank you
once
so much
again
once again
for joining us.
for joining us.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate.
All right. To all our
All
viewers,
right.
this
So
is the
all our
Africa
viewers,
Enlightenment Center.
Africa
It's our
Life
debate and
Center,
discussion
our
series. If you
debate
want
and
to,
discussion. If you want to,
contact us,
contact
you
us,
can
you can
always get to us on
always get
WhatsApp.
to us on WhatsApp,
Get to us on
get
WhatsApp
to us on
and
WhatsApp,
get
and
to have a
get
chat.
to
Because you
have a
can
chat.
just send a
You can
message.
just send
Just
a
drop a
message,
message,
just drop a
and we'll
message,
get
and we'll
back
get
to you.
out to
Thank you
you.
so much for
Thank you
watching.
so much
Thank
for
you.
watching.
See you in our
See
next
you next
episode.
episode.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.